What's the cost of doing business? Now, this is something that most business owners, most entrepreneurs, content creators, influencers, people that are out there who are in business, for some reason, just never talk about. And it kind of puzzles me why they never talk about it when it's such an integral part of doing business. I've found in my 11 years of running my present business and the somewhat close to 20 years of being in business of in some way, shape, or form, I found again and again and again that this area, this complexity, this topic continually ends up being something where I have an element of back and forth with. And if there's something in your business that you tend to have a lot of back and forth with, then that makes that thing most likely usually something very worthwhile talking about. And as a result, very important to discuss and get to a place where you you have a mode of operation in how to deal with. Like you literally have a system for dealing with it. Now, I'm going to be very transparent. I don't have a system for this yet. My system is just attempt to recognize it so you can push through it, right? So this topic of what does it cost to do business, the reason it's been extremely challenging for me or been a topic that has come back again repeatedly for me is because I don't know if you've heard this statement before, at different levels there's different devils, right? So that's the statement I've heard in the past. And effectively, what that means in the terms of business is if you're a four-figure entrepreneur, if that's even a thing, I guess every level of entrepreneurship's a thing. If you're a four-figure entrepreneur, then you have four-figure challenges. And sometimes you might have to make four or five figure investments. Like depending on how much you want to level up, you might make a seven-figure investment. But nonetheless, there's opportunities to elevate and translate from where you are to where you desire to go. So that's at four figures. If you're a five-figure entrepreneur, then there's going to be five-figure, six-figure opportunities for you to elevate. If you're a seven-figure entrepreneur, there's going to be seven-figure, eight-figure opportunities that you're going to first and foremost be invited into. But secondarily, after you recognize these opportunities, you're going to have to make the decision about whether you engage and entertain those opportunities and utilize them to move further faster in your future. Now, I have been criticized at times by some people who have asked me questions. Like in 2016, when my wife and I joined a property coaching slash mentoring program, which was £16,000 plus VAT, which works out to £19,200. So let's call it £20,000 for the sake of simplicity. I was criticized by some people for making that investment in myself. Now, granted, at the time that I joined the program in 2016, I was working full time. Okay. So, in terms of my actual business outside of work, I probably wasn't generating that much more than the £20,000 it took me to pay to get on the course. I probably wasn't yet at £20,000 in a 12-month period from my side hustles in property in a 12-month period, right? So this is an important factor to a distinguishment to make, an important factor to discuss, because what's actually happening, or what happened to me in 2016, is I was making a decision to invest five figures when the actual business in which I was making that investment for had not yet in a 12-month period been able to generate five figures. Okay. So if in a 12-month period you aren't generating the amount of money that you're attempting to invest, that can become a very big conundrum. So for example, you're not generating seven figures in a year, but yet you're looking at a seven-figure investment in that year. And quite simply, like we all know the maths of that, the reason why that can be daunting or a detriment or something dangerous is because your business hasn't shown you yet that it can actually fund that investment. So, you must be super bold or super brave to be able to take that step. Now, the reason it's interesting is because in yesterday's video, I spoke slightly about the importance of having proof of concept. And in one of my most recent videos previously, a few days ago, when I was talking about the difference between entrepreneurship and the employee, is the mindset. Okay. Now, one of the things I remember hearing from Dr. Myron Golden a number of years ago. He used to always say this. He used to say one of the biggest differences between entrepreneurs and employees is that entrepreneurs know they have to pay for their own pencils. And when he first said that, and I first heard him say that, I was like, okay, that's actually a really good point, because I used to work in schools. And when I worked in schools as a full-time employee, they would pay for the interactive whiteboard. They would pay for the software. Like if I was using some math software, they'd pay for it. If I was using some software to grade the students, they'd pay for it, right? And effectively, as a result, they'd pay for the pencils, okay? So all the utilities and facilities they were paying for. Obviously, they wouldn't pay for my clothes, right? In terms of like dress, I choose how I dress, I paid for that. But they were effectively paying for everything that was a fundamental key core resource for me to execute the work or execute the job. Now, the reason that's interesting is because come to the world of an entrepreneur, if the entrepreneur wants to utilize Pomodoro timers, right? The entrepreneur pays for it. If the entrepreneur wants to utilize a trackpad rather than a mouse, #mouse, like the entrepreneur pays for it. If the entrepreneur says, hey, I want a black keyboard, or then changes their mind and says, no, this month I want a white keyboard, guess what? The entrepreneur pays for it. And I know some of you guys are thinking, Samuel, you literally have a trackpad, a mouse, a white keyboard, and a black keyboard all at your desk. Yes, because if you want to know why, let me know in the comments below. I don't want to digress too much. So let's go deeper. So there's a cost of doing business. And in 2016, when I felt people were criticizing me about making that decision to invest £20,000 on a investment in myself, that's how I saw it, on an investment in myself, when I didn't even feel like I had the money, when practically on paper, when I didn't really have the money, that's a challenge. That's a challenge. That's a challenge. That's a challenge for anyone. That was a challenge for me. I'm not saying because I did that 10 years ago that it wasn't a challenge for me. It was a challenge for me then. It's even a challenge for me now as I think about it, to think how I was able to do that. But this is why this is so important, because we have to think about, and we would do well to discuss the importance of what it takes once you understand what the cost of doing business is. Because the cost of doing business is not what most people think it is. Most people think the cost of doing business is grit and determination. Most people think, you know what, if I wake up in the morning and I'm hungry and I want to go for it, then yeah, I've paid the cost to do business. And that's not the reality, because every business owner will tell you that there's been times where they've been tested. Every business owner will tell you, any business owner who has any level of success will tell you that there's been days where they've had to pay. And when I say pay, I mean pay more than just your energy. Pay more than just the affirmation. Pay more than just, yeah, I can do it today, right? Because along the journey comes hurdles, comes roadblocks, comes speed humps, which are all going to require something a little bit more from you than energy. And all of those things that it requires more from you than energy all boil down to what I'm going to deem as a decision. And the reason it takes a decision is because if you decide to, or you decide not to, either way, it's up to you. And I want you to really think about that. If you decide to invest in a £20,000 property coaching training program, guess what? It's up to you. You might say to yourself, you don't have the money, but guess what? If you decide to, you'll end up getting the money. It's just as simple as that. But equally, if you decide not to, it does not matter how much the program, the training, the course, the payment is to do business in that room or to do that kind of business. You've already decided not to, so you're not going to do. And the reason this is important is because this topic of the cost of doing business is a topic that, like I shared, I don't feel enough people talk about. I don't feel enough people actually get to understand from the outside looking in about the cost of doing business. And I think as a direct result of that, many people have made the decision when they started doing business, the moment they reach a speed hump or a roadblock or a hurdle which requires a price, they walk away. They, as I often say, they run away with a tail between their legs that God never gave them, right? And why would you do that? Like, why would you decide not to do business because you meet a speed hump or a hurdle that you didn't expect to see? Well, one of the reasons why is because you just weren't prepared for that to happen. And this is why I think this video is going to be super valuable for you. So let's talk about this a little bit more in depth, okay? There are different ways that a cost is required to be paid when you do business. Sometimes it's through means of services, okay? If you utilize a platform like Zoom in order to deliver coaching, if you utilize a platform like Zoom in order to deliver sales calls, if you utilize a platform like Zoom, I've seen some people even record YouTube videos using Zoom, right? That service, unless you want to be cut off after 30 minutes or however long they ask you to have for free, it's going to cost you something. And the question is, are you willing to pay? Okay, let's talk about something else. Technology, right? So I spoke a moment ago about Dr. Myron Golden sharing about entrepreneurs have to buy their own pencils. Okay, so I just showed you 2 keyboards. I showed you a trackpad. I showed you the mouse. Right? Here's a mic. Here's a boom arm. Okay, all of these things I've paid for. Okay, I've paid for. There's a whole bunch of stuff on this desk. A whole bunch of stuff. And yeah, because I'm not editing these videos, like it doesn't, like, there's nothing I can do. What I was going to do is take a picture and then insert it into the video, but these videos are one takes, so we're not going to do that. But you guys let me know in the comments below how I can share with you, I guess, just like what's on this desk right now. And again, for those of you who've been rocking with me for a while, you know already that this is not even my main setup. This is my desk. This is my working desk where I usually do all my work from. But in terms of content creation, going live and all of that stuff, I usually do that on the other side of the studio, from my chair, or my other chair. So this setup here is not, in terms of a financial investment, anywhere near what this setup over here is. Okay, this setup over here, multi-screens, mixer. I actually do have a mixer on the desk here, but this mixer is like less than £200, whereas that mixer is just under £500, right? Multi-camera switcher, like lights, like actual professional lights. Like, and yes, I got a professional light here, but it's kind of mainly for that setup. But again, professional light, interactive board, like I could go on and on, right? And sit stand desk here, sit stand desk there, right? So all of this stuff is paid for because of the realization that there's a cost of doing business. And when I first went into business, I will say this because I think this is important, I was so anti-paying for anything. Like, I was so anti-paying for anything. I remember the laptop that's actually on this desk right now, it was an investment of £1,500 or £2,000, between around that amount. And I remember when I got to the place a number of years ago when I was making the decision to buy this laptop or not to buy this laptop, right? And that wasn't too long ago. That was maybe about 5-6 years ago, okay? So 5-6 years ago, I'm buying a laptop for £1,500, roughly £2,000, and I've got this stingy mentality. I'm rationalizing and over rationalizing why I don't want to pay £2,000, £1,500. I don't remember the exact price now, but why I don't want to pay over £1,000. Let's just use that as a metric for a laptop. Okay. And the reality is we are 5-6 years later and I still am using the laptop. Right. And I'm actually super excited today because today I was actually putting the effort and energy in to get. So basically my laptop needed to be repaired. It was sent away a few months ago. It came back, it's been repaired, but since it's been repaired, I haven't done much with it. But because I'm looking at doing a few different things, I thought to myself, let me set my laptop up properly so that I can use it for these videos, right? And if I end up using it for these videos, on the daily videos that I'm doing, I'm going to end up using one of my cameras. And that just means like the quality of these videos is going to go up. And I'm excited about that, right? Because I like good quality videos, okay? I don't know about anyone else. I think these videos are not the kind of quality I want to put out. But that's just me, okay? And you guys can help me in the comments, right? You can let me know in the comments, oh, Samuel, you know what? The quality of your videos is cool. Like, we ain't complaining. The content is what we're coming for. I don't know. I did, like, whatever your thoughts are, let me know in the comments. So, but I'm looking forward to having a crisper quality daily set of videos coming soon. Once I finish setting up all of the stuff. Now, anyway, this is the cost of doing business, okay? I'm just talking about the fact that right now I'm recording one way, and the excitement I get to know that I'm going to be able to increase the quality. But how am I going to increase the quality? I'm not going to increase the quality just because I own a laptop, because a laptop in and of itself is not going to be able to record these daily videos. It's actually because of the fact that I own cameras. Like, I own multiple cameras. We have multiple cameras in the actual production set, on the battle station. So I call my production set my battle station, right? So we have multiple cameras in the battle station. We've got 3 professional cameras that are set up there, okay? One for the vibe board, one for when I'm at my seat, and a secondary camera for when I'm at my seat, right? But I have more professional cameras than that, because there's professional cameras we bought for other purposes. There's professional cameras we bought to have second angles. There's professional cameras we bought over time to do different stuff in our production of content to add value to our community. Now, all of these things, someone might say, oh, Samuel, like, that's overkill, like, you don't need that. And the reality is, maybe you don't need that, but before you need it or don't need it, you have to make the decision: are you willing to pay the cost of doing business? Because I'm going to tell you right now, most people are not, and that alone is what's going to invite most people to leave the greatest opportunity they have in front of them. Samuel, greatest opportunity they have in them? What are you talking about? All right, so let me tell you. The greatest opportunity that we all have in front of us is the opportunity to decide how we want our future to go. And in terms of finances, revenue, income, business is probably your best shot at your best life in that regard. Now, this is not my attempt to tell every single person, oh, don't have a job. No, I'm not saying that to you. What I'm saying to you is, if you understand what a business is, it's a vehicle that gives you access to create wealth at a level that nothing else can do. Okay, nothing else can do. Now, someone can argue, but Samuel, there are jobs out there that pay people multiple millions in a year. Yes, there are. And if your skill set allows you to generate those multiple millions in a job, just guess what? That same skill set will probably enable you to do if you were a key component in a business. Okay, so it's just thinking about it. And again, I'm not saying any of this to say you have to start your own business, because again, that's not what this is. Like, there are partnerships, there are limited liability partnerships, there are conglomerates. There are so many ways that you can live that dream, okay? That business efficiency and efficacy, right? So there's that. So coming back to this, 2016, I made an investment, roughly £20,000, and that was in order for me to move further faster in my future. I recognize that as a cost of doing business. It hit hard, but I'm grateful. Like, today, I'm so grateful I made that decision. Roughly 2020, call it 2019 probably, I made a decision to invest over £1,000 on a laptop, right? Which at the time, I didn't think I would still have in 2026, but I do, and I'm using it, right? Daily, right? Professional cameras being used, okay? Properties being bought. 2017 just coming to mind, that one of the properties I bought, again, there was a cost of doing business. I remember paying the legal fees for this specific property transaction that comes to mind, and thinking to myself, like, this is the most I've ever paid in legal fees for the acquisition of a property. But guess what? It was worth it. That property has been bringing me income close to, not every, because we had one year where for about 7 months the property was being refurbished, etc. But close to every single month for X amount of years, that property has been paying me, okay? Not even to mention like properties where we've controlled, same thing. Paying money in terms of legal fees, paying money in terms of contracts and agreements, paying money in terms of rent to landlords whose properties we're managing on their behalf, but those properties are still generating us £1,400 a month every single God blessed month for 5 years and beyond. Like, when you think about that, you realize that it's only those of us who are on the other side of paying the cost of doing business that recognize the cost is always worth it. Even if things go wrong. And I have to say this because I don't want you to think for a moment, oh, but Samuel, what if it doesn't go right? Like, Samuel, what if I'm the kind of person who's just got bad luck and things always go wrong? Well, even if things go wrong, there's a lesson to be learned from that experience, which probably will stop you from having to pay the same or more in the future now that you know that lesson. And this is the cost of doing business. And this is why this topic needs to be basically shouted from the rooftops and shared with every single person who's serious and not just curious about going into business. Everybody who's serious and not just curious about leveling up in their business. And everybody who's serious and not just curious about doing business the best they can so they can finally have their best shot at their best life. And as I was thinking about this, it dawned on me, Samuel, the biggest challenge you have had in business throughout your journey has been the battle between paying the cost to do business. What is the price to do business? And as I was thinking about this, it kind of like hit me like an epiphany. There is a price to do business, and let me tell you what the price is. The price is whatever it costs. The price is whatever it takes. The price is whatever it's going to be. And I realized that for myself because there was a time where it was a struggle to make that decision to invest £20,000 into myself. There was a time where it was a challenge and a struggle to decide to invest over £1,000 on a device for my own development, for my own business infrastructure, for my own business acceleration. Now, what's interesting is in the last few years, let's call it the last 4 years, right? The kind of equipment we've purchased with no hesitation, interactive whiteboards, right? Thousands of pounds worth of value, okay? Again, like digital professional cameras, multiple, new computers, right? Like there's so much more. Like this whole studio is a testament to the switch that happened in my mind. And I remember one of my students saying to me, "Oh, Samuel, I saw your oldest studio. And I said, "Oh, which one was that?" And he explained to me the video that he watched of my training where he saw that video. And I said, "Nah, bro, that wasn't even the first one. The first studio was," and I was explaining to him, the first studio I had, let me show you this because I think this is going to be super powerful for me to even show you this, right? And it's super weird what I'm showing you, but I'm going to show you because I think it's going to be important, right? Relevant. The first studio I ever had was in such a small room, okay? The length of the room was probably from this wall I'm at right now to this, like right by where the camera is. I think I could probably stretch my two arms and my wingspan would touch both walls in the first studio I had, right? And that's the length of the room. Now, in terms of the width of the room, I could probably stretch one arm and lean and be touching the other side of the room. The width, it was such a narrow room, okay? So when I set up my first office/studio in this narrow room, I realized that the camera that I had, that I was recording content, doing webinars with, was not like like most cameras come with a lens, okay? And that lens is known as the kit lens, KIT, the kit lens. The kit lens usually is a lens which covers like a normal distance that the camera manufacturers feel most people want to cover, okay? Now, the problem I had in my first ever studio is the room was so narrow and so thin that the kit lens, like, it just didn't work. It made me look so close to the camera, like I was literally, my eyeball was on the camera's lens, right? Just didn't make sense. So what I just went over there to get is like over there in the studio, I have all the lenses I've bought throughout all my years, right? I went and bought this lens, okay? This is one of the investments I made. One of the first investments I made, I guess in my content creation journey, if you think of it like that, right? As a creator, right? This is the Canon EFS 24mm lens. Okay, now there's a bit more to this lens which I'm not going to go into because I don't assume you're a camera fanatic or too interested in it. But if you look at this image of the lens, you can see this lens is a very thin lens. Okay, it's really super thin. When it goes on the camera, it's actually that lens is actually thinner than the camera it fits on. So any camera that lens works on, when you put it on, the lens is smaller than the camera and I'll say for the first time, because most lenses are usually bigger than the camera in terms of width, okay, or depth. That depth would be the accurate mathematical term. Now, why is this important? I'm going to tell you why. The Canon EFS 24mm lens is what they call a pancake lens. And the reason I bought that lens is because what it would do, it's a micro lens, a pancake lens. It makes everything look bigger. Okay, it makes everything look bigger. So if I put that lens on a camera and put it where this specific device is recording me from right now, I would actually look like I'm in some, well, right now I'm actually in a big room, but I'd actually look like this wall's further away from me. I'd look like I'm further away from the camera. Everything just looks bigger. Okay, and I used that in my first studio for probably about 2 years, maybe a year and a half, 2 years. Okay, now why am I sharing this? I'm sharing this because this lens, I think at the time was like £200, maybe £150, but this lens at the time was part of the cost of doing business, and it was part of that whatever it takes kind of energy. It was kind of part of that whatever it takes kind of cost. And this is what's missing sometimes in the discourse and dialogue that we have around business. This is what's missing a lot of the time when we really want to understand what it takes to make things happen. It's not about, okay, it's going to be a little bit hard. Okay, you know what, this isn't working. Okay, you know what, I put the camera up here and look, I look like my eyeballs inside of the camera. All hope is gone. No, all hope is not gone. There's just a cost to be paid. There's just a price to be paid. There's just an investment to be made. And the question is do you want the outcome that you said you desire? Because I wanted the outcome that I said I had desired. And I'm so grateful that, to the best of my estimation, I have far exceeded the outcomes I thought I was working to all of that time back years ago in 2015/14, when was around the time I was buying a lens like that. I'm so grateful I have superseded and surpassed the ambition and goals that I had for myself at that time. But the reality is that wouldn't have been possible if I didn't say yes to every opportunity I had to invest. And when I'm saying yes to every opportunity I had to invest, I don't mean I said yes to everything, but I mean I said yes to the things that mattered. I said yes to the things that would have pushed the pendulum in my favor. And that's why today, yes, there's a studio with interactive whiteboards, with multiple monitors on this side and on that side, with mixers on here and there, and with tablets connected to Doodle when I go live. And guys, this isn't about flossing. It's not about showing off. It's about paying the cost to make sure that you can do what you need to do in and for your business. I remember working in schools and teaching students and feeling sometimes like we should have this or we don't have this. And these children would get so much more from this educational experience if only we got this, or if only we did this, if only we had this. And it took being in business for a number of years and understanding the conceptual idea that as an entrepreneur, what facilitates the process of engagement between me and my client, potential client, and long-term clients is me. What facilitates whether we have an interactive whiteboard to truly, deeply explain the concepts to help my clients gain is up to me. I can't ask someone who doesn't know how I desire to convey information or how I desire to build my portfolio to come and convey that information or build my portfolio for me. The best I can do is recognize in the landscape of the marketplace other people that are effectively doing the things I desire to do and learn from them so that I can develop a similar infrastructure, the same infrastructure, a more complex infrastructure. That's one way. The other way is I can ideate. I can sit down, pen in hand, paper in hand, journal in hand, and start writing down the kind of experience I want to create for my clients, the kind of experience I want to create for my colleagues, the kind of experience I want to create for my team, because that all boils down to culture. And culture, 9 times out of 10, isn't what people think it is. It isn't what you make up in your head. Oh, my business is going to have a freedom culture where we're all just going to feel free and just be like hippies. Well, here's the reality. If you want to do that, there's going to be a price to be paid. There's going to be an investment that has to be made. There's going to be a cost that you will have to pay. And the moment you get your head around that, guess what? Business starts to make more sense, because you start to realize that all you're doing is making an investment. And all you're expecting from other people is equally to make an investment. And it becomes so much easier because the Bible says something so profound. It says you will reap what you have sown. So when you start getting into that gear, when you start realizing, hold on a minute, for me to buy a Stream Deck is just an investment in my business. And what happens is, as you start making these investments in your business, you start sowing. And it's as we start sowing that we start opening up the doors to start reaping. And it only takes a little bit of sowing before the abundance of reaping can start to creep in. This is something I can win. I'm signing out. I want you to remember, small keys open big doors. And I pray that the small key shared in this video is one that will open up doors of yours. Good day. God bless. Let's go. Like, comment, subscribe. You know. See you on the next one.